Hello lovelies! Today I'm going to be doing a storytime session and I'm going to tell you about how I got into Harry Potter and my journey with it. So this video will be a little bit different because as I tell you my story, I'm also going to be coloring in my Harry Potter coloring book so you can watch me color as I talk. So if you're new, my name is Mamta and this is my channel GeekGlitz, in which I talk about all things geek and all things glitz. So there's a lot of fandom related videos, merch videos, fashion videos, and sometimes how they all combine. So here's my coloring book setup, and I'm going to be coloring this Ravenclaw crest in this book since I'm a Ravenclaw. I would have done the Hogwarts crest, but I've actually already done it, so you can see it right here. And just a side note, I really do love this postcard version of the coloring books because it's small and the card is nice and thick. So the markers I'm going to be using are some Copic sketch markers, and here's a closer look at their color codes. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with this coloring. So I first discovered the Harry Potter books when I was about 12 years old, and it was the summer between 6th and 7th grade. I was in the Hong Kong airport on my way to India to spend the summer there with my family, and I stopped by the bookstore to get some reading material for the flight. I'd always been a big reader, so this was a pretty normal thing for me to do, and I came across the first two Harry Potter books in the British UK edition covers, and something about it just looked really interesting to me. They were both paperback versions, and I read the blurb in the first book in the back and saw that it was about a magic school and decided to take a chance. Now, I'm the type of person that when I start some book series or TV show, I need to keep going as I get too curious about what happens. So even before knowing if I would like the first book, I went ahead and bought the first two books without knowing anything else about the series or the author. I immediately started reading the first book on the flight, and I'm pretty sure I read it non-stop and continued reading it in India the first night I got there. I was hooked and obsessed, but secretly I was a little sad too, because I knew I was 12 years old already, so I'd missed out on getting my Hogwarts letter. I was such a silly child. Anyway, I told my younger sister that she had to read it immediately too, so she also started reading it while I began the second book. I finished reading this one pretty fast as well. Then began my hunt for the third book, even though I had no idea if it was out or not. I pestered my dad non-stop to take me to any bookstore we could see while out in India to check if they had the third book. We must have checked numerous bookstores and always got the same answer, that it wasn't available yet. And in the meantime, I lent the first two books to another childhood friend of mine who was also in India for the summer. So he, my sister, and me were all anxiously waiting for the third book. One day, my dad took me to some Indian grocery store, and while we were there, we saw a store that looked like a small bookshop. So I forced my dad to check it out too. And I made my dad ask the shopkeeper if he had the third Harry Potter book. And he confidently said yes. But I didn't believe him. So we asked to see it, and then he showed it to us. And it was The Prisoner of Azkaban in all of its glory, but in a hardback version. I, of course, immediately bought it and went home to tell my sister and call my friend and tell him that I had gotten the book. And then I proceeded to read it and thoroughly enjoyed it. This was a very memorable summer for me since I had discovered the series and I reread the books several times over the summer. And when I got back home to Taiwan, which is where I grew up, I kept telling all my other friends about this wonderful series and started loaning my books out to my friends, so my copies became increasingly roughed up, but I just loved them so dearly. I recall in the 7th grade, we had to do a book report in my humanities class, so I chose to do Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. And I remember being so excited about sharing this book with my classmates, and I put on a really elaborate presentation in which I had some props, and there was a part of it where I covered myself in a silver cloth and pretended that I was invisible. I think my class was either thoroughly amused or they must have thought I was really lame, but either way, it was fun and I did well on my report. Fast forward to the summer of 2000, I was heading to the US for the first time on a multi-city adventure with my family. And I knew Goblet of Fire was coming out and I was anxiously waiting to get the book. The day it was releasing was July 8th, and I was going to be heading to Las Vegas with my family that day. So for some reason, I was really stressed that I would not be able to find any bookstores in Vegas because my childhood brain wrongly assumed that I would only be surrounded by hotels with casinos and no bookstores. So I constantly bugged my parents that we somehow needed to get the book. In retrospect, I'm thinking I was such an annoying child. But anyway, what ended up happening was that on the night of July 7th, my family and I were out with a couple of family friends in LA, and it was pretty late at night. And then we happened to come across a bookstore with a long line. We went to see the commotion, and as it turns out, it was a midnight release line for The Goblet of Fire. Can you just imagine the amount of happiness I experienced in that moment? It was such a wonderful coincidence. So of course we stood in the line, and this was the first time I got to experience a midnight book release. I got my thick copy of Goblet of Fire, and my sister got hers, and we immediately started reading it when we got back to our hotel room. I could not put this book down. It was the most amazing feeling ever, and I was so pleased that I was able to get it. Fast forward again to 2003 when Order of the Phoenix was released. Now, since I was quite obsessed with Harry Potter by this point, I decided to get the deluxe American slipcase version of this book, which I pre-ordered on Amazon. But because I was in Taiwan, there was no release day delivery, so I had to wait until I received the book before I could read it. I remember feeling a bit odd at the beginning while reading this book because of all the angst Harry was experiencing. I just remember thinking, why is he so mean all the time now? But of course now, with more perspective and multiple readings, I totally get how he acted, and it makes sense to me now. With Half-Blood Prince, I had a similar experience to Order of the Phoenix, in the sense that I ordered the deluxe American slipcase version, so it arrived later than the actual release date. So I was frantically anxious again to read it and not be spoiled, so I would grab my sister's copy of the book whenever she was not reading it while still waiting for my book, and I'm sure she hated me for doing that. And finally, let's move on to the Deathly Hallows release. And again, I ordered the American slipcase version, so I knew it would arrive later. And this summer, I offered my sister that I'd go stand in line at the bookstore in the morning, since there was no midnight release party, to pick up her book, and she kindly agreed. So I was able to start reading her copy first. It was such a bittersweet moment finishing this book. I was really sad that the story had ended, but also kind of happy that I got to experience this great story. And it was just really moving. Looking back now, as I've told you all the story, I realized I kind of bugged my family a lot on my journey with the books. So I'm grateful that they put up with my crazy antics and obsession. And of course, because of the books, I made sure to experience the movies as they came out each year in the cinema. It was a lot of great memories made with my friends and family. And throughout it all, I was collecting merch whenever I came across something I liked. In the early years when I was first into the books, I even started making a little Harry Potter shrine in my book cabinet, which had a shelf solely dedicated to my Harry Potter merch and books. My bedroom was covered with Harry Potter stickers and posters as I was growing up, and I had some Chamber of Secrets bed sheets with Harry and Ron in the flying car, and also a towel with the same design. This was all in Taiwan where I grew up. When I moved on to university in St. Louis, my family moved to Hong Kong. And so I somehow lost a lot of my early copies of the books and merch during this move, which makes me really, really sad. I've got some of my early stuff, which I've shown on my Instagram before, and I still have the deluxe editions of the US versions from books 5 to 7, and I had also purchased the UK deluxe editions of books 1 to 4 before moving from Taiwan. So that was the set that I ended up having with me in the end. Books 1 to 4 in the UK Deluxe, and books 5 to 7 in the US Deluxe Edition. It wasn't until last year that I finally decided to purchase books 5 to 7 in the UK Deluxe Edition, so that I would have a matching set. And you can see my Instagram to see pictures of that set because it's quite beautiful and I absolutely love it. It's been an incredibly wonderful journey. I've been lucky to have seen the Wizarding World in Orlando twice. Once in 2011 and once again in 2015 once Diagon Alley had opened. And both have been awesome memories for me. I remember just sitting in Diagon Alley and just soaking up the atmosphere and feeling grateful that I had the chance to visit. And last year in October, I got to visit the studio tour in the UK, and that was another bucket list Harry Potter related thing that I had to do. Throughout it all, it just surprises and delights me that my love for this series just never stops. It's been pretty constant in my life, and I'm not at all ashamed to admit that. And now last year, I finally decided to start my Instagram and this YouTube so that I had a place to share my Harry Potter love and connect with some fellow friends who can relate. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed my story. I always love hearing about how people discovered Harry Potter and thought it would be nice to share mine as well. I don't know where else my Potter journey will take me, but I've enjoyed it very much so far, and I'm looking forward to what else it has in store for me. And as you can see, the coloring is now complete. So hope you've enjoyed seeing me color this as well. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this video and if you liked hearing about my Harry Potter journey. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more things geek and more things glitz. You can find the details to all my social media in the description, so come by to my Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook to connect with me. Thank you for watching, lovelies. See you in the next video. Bye!